Okay, at this location, since we've been talking about zonations, I thought I would share one more with you. And this one is based upon temperature. So, here in a system like this, um, we have the water on top, the surface water, in what we call the epilimnion. And the epilimnion, which comes from the Greek, means upper lake. And the water temperature here, of course, well, at this time of the year and as we move into the summer, is going to be the warmer area. As we move down, the next layer is what we call the metalimnion, which means middle lake. And for many, it's synonymous with the thermocline, which means there's a drop in temperature. And then finally, you get to the lowest level, which is called the hypolimnion. And this, of course, is the coldest area. So, in a general sense, if we're looking at a summer lake, you'll have these three distinct layers: the epilimnion, the metalimnion, and the hypolimnion, or lower lake. But I think what's interesting to appreciate, and this is very important relative to the ecology of a system like this, is that things change through the seasons. So during the summer, we have those very distinctive layers. The upper layer may be 65 to 75 degrees. Then the middle layer might be from about 45 to 65 degrees. And then below that, 39 to maybe 45 degrees at the bottom. So you'll have that type of stratification in the summer. Likewise, in the winter, you have stratification as well. You'll have ice on the top, but then you see, because water is densest at 39 degrees Fahrenheit, that will be the temperature at the bottom in the winter. And then above that layer, it'll actually be colder, 38 degrees, 37, 36, etc., until it freezes at the top. So during the winter, you have the stratification as well, with the heaviest water, 39 degrees at the bottom. And if water didn't have that function, that ability, then water would freeze right to the bottom, you see, and everything in it would perish. So water has this very unusual quality in that it is densest when it is at 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, so what happens outside the winter and the summer? In the spring and in the fall, in the spring when things begin to warm up, in the fall when things begin to cool down, you have what are called overturns. As water temperature changes, water is dropping, water is recirculating. And so you get what are called the overturns in the spring and in the fall. And this helps to circulate oxygen and nutrients throughout the system, and along with it, life. So you have these stratifications relative to temperature as a result. So you have your areas of upper, middle, and lower, and you have the shifts during the various seasons when it comes to these type of temperature zonations. All right now I've picked up another leaf for you here. And, like the eastern cottonwood, members of this genus Populus generally, and there are exceptions, but generally have a flattened stem. You may remember this from our work together. And the flattened stem catches the gentlest of breezes, and it causes the leaves to dance. Now, If you remember looking at the cottonwood, they had a very triangular shape. This leaf is more rounded, but heavily toothed. This is called the big tooth aspen. And I'm going to stand out of the way here, and I'm going to let Bay take a picture of these trunks of the aspen, because there's a little grove of them in here. And the aspen will front a forest, which means basically they are sun lovers. They are pioneer species. So once we have other trees coming into the mix, like maples or oak in this area, they will shade them out, and the aspen will decline in numbers. But as long as they're getting sunlight and as long as they're high enough in the canopy, they will persist. But they're not a long-lived tree. Nothing compared to the maple or oak that are in the neighborhood. So, another member of the genus Populus, and I don't know if we've seen this one before, grandidentata, which means big-toothed, and that's what they are, the big-tooth aspen. Okay. Right now we've taken a quick stop here at another tree that we've seen many times before. This is a red maple, and I'm going to have Bay go all the way up because the red maple is in flower right now. Buds have opened up, and the beautiful little red flowers are everywhere, and they're falling to the ground as well. So the red maple, if you remember, tolerates the wetter soils, the more hydric soils, and this whole area and these forests all around us are really quite wet in general. And so we're going to find quite a lot of swamp white oak here, and we'll find the red maple, and we'll find hickory in this neighborhood as well, along with a number of others. And you know what, as Bay is sharing with you the red maple here, the shrubs to our left, it's worth taking a look at them, because these are honeysuckles, and this is called Tartarian honeysuckle, and they're part of madcap horse, the acronym that I've shared with you that speaks of those woody plants that are oppositely branched. And so here you have a Tartarian honeysuckle, and what I really want you to be aware of is that they're one of the first to leaf out in the spring. So we see the honeysuckles out first, we see the cherries out early, we see elderberries out early, and so there are certain trees, obviously, that bud out very early in the season, and then others take quite a while to do so. So these are some of the earliest. Okay, folks, we're at a different part of this lake right now, and I thought I would share with you the notion of succession in these lentic systems. That's an important concept for us to cover. Succession, if you remember, is the natural changing of one vegetative community to another. And along with these changes, life changes, obviously. So here, if we begin with a lake, just appreciate that a lake is always being filled in. Sedimentation, life lives, life dies. So the lake is constantly, through the years, becoming shallower. And as you might suspect, as the lake fills in, eventually, depending upon how deep that lake is, it will become a pond. So a lake evolves into a pond. As a pond continues to fill in, we then start to get shallower water, and we get vegetation creeping out throughout. And we have emergent vegetation being extended throughout the entire pond in many cases. And the pond, as it fills in, simply becomes a marsh. Now, from a marsh, we can go in a couple of different directions. If we're surrounded with open field type environments, the marsh can become a wet meadow. A wet meadow becomes a field. The field becomes a shrubland. The shrubland becomes a young forest. And the young forest eventually becomes a climax forest. And in our area, of course, that means a forest dominated by maple and beech and others that you're aware of, the yellow birch and the hemlock. Or from a marsh, if we're surrounded by trees, that marsh may become a swamp. But just know that a swamp does not need to be preceded by a marsh in all cases, but it can be. And in our area, essentially we have what are called shallow water swamps. So these are, again, seasonal bodies of water characterized by woody plant growth. So the marsh can move into a wet meadow and beyond, or the marsh can move into a swamp, and then the swamp can eventually fill in and become a more mesic forest with drier soils, and eventually a climax forest. And so we have from lake to pond to marsh to a meadow and beyond to a forest to a swamp and beyond to a forest. That's the successional process of those four systems. Bogs are unique unto themselves, and their whole successional process is quite varied. It can proceed and fill in gradually. Often they're covered with vegetation, a cushiony floating plant zone, and a bog can eventually fill in and become a more drier environment. But very often, bogs are disrupted in various ways, and they can go backwards in terms of the successional process. They can go forward, they can go backwards. Their evolution is very unique. So we have to speak of them in different terms as a result. But that's generally the process of succession in these lentic environments. Okay, good. We stopped at another tree in this neighborhood, and Bay is sharing with you the bark, which is really quite unusual. And I'm pretty sure this is a new one for you. This is an understory species. This is a species of tree we usually find in the subcanopy of the northern hardwood forest. The common name is hop hornbeam. Hop comes from the fact that their fruiting bodies look like the fruit of the hop plant, the plant that's used to make beer. Hornbeam is a term that speaks of a very hard wood that was placed on the back of oxen. So the oxen were connected to it and the reins connected to that. So a hornbeam is a very hard wood that was used in that manner. And that's where the name hornbeam comes from. Another common name for this tree is ironwood. And that wood is very, very hard and very strong. They're a member of the birch family, Betulaceae, and this is Ostrea virginiana, and very closely related to musselwood. I'm not sure if we've seen that one in the field before. But the musclewood is also called ironwood. Both of them have that common name. And both are in the birch family. But you notice the bark, it peels off in very narrow, thin strips and is somewhat flexible. And I'm going to compare this one to another tree I see right down the road here, which also has bark that peels off, but takes on a different character. So from the hop hornbeam, let's go to the other one right over here. Okay, here's another one with peeling bark, but you can see this is very rigid and very thick pieces of bark that shag off the tree. And of course that's how they got the name shagbark hickory. So the hickory is a member of the walnut family, Juglandaceae. And I'm not sure if we've seen hickory before, but this is Carya is the genus, ovata is the descriptive term. Ovata refers to the roundness of the hickory nut. And the shagbark hickory produces a very delicious tasting nut in the fall. And I generally do collect them each year. Nice and sweet. So, and this is also a very hard wood. And actually we have seen this one in the field. I just recalled because we spoke of British thermal units, BTUs. So we saw this one at Shale Creek at the end of our walk. And so you should be familiar with this one as a result. So just make sure you can differentiate between the hop hornbeam and the shagbark hickory.